Alright, I made it to San Antonio, so yeah, I like showing you the view of the Alamo Dome and the Space Needle or whatever. And I'll just do a little update, maybe a few news things, a couple of things from the chapter I taught today. I think I'll just link, when I post Acts 12, like next week, I'll link some of these little rollouts for those who might want to catch the little update things I do. And just a little news thing, the big news, I listen to talk radio, I try to catch most of the news, but the big news today is did Trump target, get rid of the FBI Director Comey, and the news has been reporting that FBI Director Comey actually requested more funds for the Russia investigation on Trump and all, and that's why he fired him. But the second man in command, I guess his name is McCabe, today I believe that being questioned by Congressman, he had said he had, as far as he knows, that's not correct. And it's interesting because if the media's been pushing that narrative all day, that's it, that Comey wanted more money, it's possibly not a true story. But they've been reporting those things as true. And so all you're seeing is just a lot of false news, I guess you could call it, fake news. Now, comment on maybe some local, when I got earlier today, I took the car, and it was my wife's car, just to change a starter. I used to do a lot of that. And she has a good car, I think it's a Toyota Camry. Sure enough, when got the starter put in, I did a little stuff on the car, but I dropped it off to her. And then she took me to get my car. She got in the car, and it wouldn't start. I said, oh, that means it wasn't your starter. But then she said, oh no, because you opened the handle manually on the passenger side, the car, this is technology. She says, oh no, then the car won't start. You gotta reset it. My car, 1999 Sabre, runs great. I would like it if I had giraffes in the back seat, all the windows open, blasting. I would like if you put the key in, it just starts. But technology. Now, the locals, some corporate stuff. I mentioned the other day that Joe McComb won the mayoral election. And the two candidates that were the most qualified were Mayor Nelda and Joe McComb. And then there were others running. About, 7 or 8 in the field. And it was interesting because I do like reading the Kohler Times. And the Kohler Times endorsed the former Mayor Nelda Martinez. I think the Kohler Times felt she got a raw deal because most of the people ousted her and elected the only other person running against her, which was the man, Dan McQueen, and he got involved in somewhat of a scandal. He left office, 2 weeks or 10 days after he got in. So I think the Kohler Times felt Nelda Martinez, the former mayor, got a raw deal because it was under her reign that we had all the water boil notices. So they actually endorsed Mayor Nelda. Now, there was a question on the recent special election for mayor that we had that maybe it wouldn't be settled because the field was like 8 candidates or so. You'd have to get a majority. So even if this most recent special election, if nobody got over 50% of vote, total vote, then there would be one more term that they had to vote again, like a runoff. But McComb had like 52% of the total vote. Mayor Nelda had the second most highest, was like 30%. The Kohler Times was not gracious in the candidate that they had endorsed losing, because I read then the editorial, which is normally pretty good. but it was sort of titled, "Okay, now that you won, let's get to work." You don't ever say something like that, and sort of like almost critical. And then I read the whole thing. So the Times media, they're all subject to bias, or to reporting things in a tone and in a way that simply is because maybe you don't like or the other side won. And so I kind of found that, a little interesting. Now, today I'm up here, so we have the Alamo Dome in the back, Space Needle. The chapter I did teach earlier this morning is the Acts 12, so I'll make just a few comments. I said earlier, I believe, that the Herod mentioned in Acts 12 was not Herod the Great, but it was Herod Agrippa the First. And in Acts 12, we see the story where he's giving a speech one day, Herod Agrippa. And the angel of the Lord smote him, and he was eaten with worms. Now, the first century historian Josephus, in his work Antiquities, actually historically documents the death of Agrippa that took place in AD 44. So what we also see in the book of Acts, as I'm teaching it over the next, I'm still doing Mark and Kings as studies in Acts, but what we see that's real important in Acts is a lot of historical names of people, Agrippa, others, court cases, documents, and all of those things. If it was fabricated, like some of the critics said, then you'd be able to go back and research and say, let's see if this is all fake news, if Acts is fake news. But actually, historians did go back. The famous one was Sir Ramsay. And he, I think it was in the 1900s, early 1900s possibly. It's a time where you had what's called higher criticism. A lot of, out of the universities in Germany, men like Rudolf Bultmann, others, these were educated men, but they took an interpretation of Scripture that basically doubted the historical content of the Bible. And they said some of these things are sort of like myths. They used the term myth. They didn't mean it was a fable, but they said a lot of what we read is not really historically accurate, but it's added in there. So a lot of well-meaning men, I'll just mention Bultmann, they accepted that, though it was not true. They were wrong. But Sir Ramsay, in the field of studying early documents to see if they're correct, historically accurate, he went and did an in-depth going back to the early historians, reading other things at the time. The Roman Empire obviously is a real empire, nobody doubts that. And so look, with the names of these characters that we read about in Acts, the certain court proceedings, street names, and Sir Ramsay he went from being a critic to stating at the end of, a train again, that's the one I showed you last week. Sir Ramsay went from being a critic to saying that the book of Acts was the most reliably documented, historically accurate document from that period of time, which was high praise, considering he went into that endeavor thinking he would show that it was kind of fake. And some of the people that held to that view that, the Bible is, it's good, we believe the moral teachings, but all of the other things, we realize some of them that hold to that view, they're not all deniers of God, but they were convinced that it's sort of like the Bible was more or less just a good moral book, and when you get to the miracles and all, some taught that when Jesus fed the people, professors were teaching these types of things, that what he did was he fed the multitudes. I've been teaching that in the book of Mark. And some said, well, how did he feed so many people with a few fish and a few loaves of bread? They said, well, Jesus had a whole bunch of food in the back, because they couldn't believe the supernatural elements. Some professors taught the way the water was turned into wine was there was like a little bit of old sediment in the bottom of the water bottles, and when Jesus said, pour the water into them. But actually, no. It's true. It's historically accurate. And if we have historical accuracy in these other things that we can check, then we hold it to be true all the way, all right? The big narrative about fake news, the big narrative about bias. Today, also in the news, because I listen, try to get the latest before I spoke, Lester Holt, who is the news anchor for NBC. I like Lester Holt. Lester Holt's black. You say, well, maybe you're more because you defend a lot of the minorities, and maybe that's why you like him. No, Lester Holt, if he asks tough questions and all, I don't get the feeling that he's doing it like an attack dog. I also like John Dickerson. John Dickerson hosts the Sunday news show for, I believe, CBS. But these are the news guys on the main media networks. He himself got into some hot water with Trump supporters because he had a recent interview with Trump as well, and he asked some tough questions, and kind of Trump walked out. But I still have no negative view of John Dickerson. I feel they're fair. But the interview today that's kind of breaking news was Lester Holt actually just interviewed Donald Trump. And he's asking about the James Comey firing. And he's asking Trump, he said, you told us, Mr. Trump, that FBI Director Comey told you 3 times that you yourself were not under investigation. And Trump says yes, and then Holt asked him, and when did it happen? He said, well, I had a dinner with Comey, and he told me I was not. And then he said, one time Comey called me, and one time I called him. You know, Trump is not politically correct. I don't think he's lying about it, but he actually answers questions at times that are not in his best favor, because then they also asked him, did you fire Comey because some legitimate Justice Department people felt that actually Comey should have gotten fired? There was a new, one of the Justice Department people that honestly said when they looked at the whole way Comey did certain things, they honestly had an opinion that he should be fired. So they gave that opinion to Trump. Now Trump, if he was, Hillary or whatever, he could say, yes, that's why I fired him. But he told the truth. He said, no. He said, yes, the Justice Department basically gave a negative view and recommended that Comey should be gone. He said, but either way, Trump said, because I heard the clip of the Lester Holt interview. He said, either way, I was going to fire him anyway. I decided it was time. Look, all of that is politically incorrect, and all of that is actually, in those particular things, he's being more honest than you would normally see with an establishment Republican or an establishment Democrat. And I'm not a big defender of Trump, but I could see this, the whole media thing, okay? So this will be the last comment. The few things from Acts 12, I wanted you to maybe get a little teaser of it, read that chapter. I'll post that in a few days, how God supernaturally delivers Peter, sends an angel, Peter's in jail, and the angel of the Lord, I mentioned that earlier, smites Herod, which is corruption and leadership in the dynasty, if you will, of the Herods. It got to a turning point where God himself intervened. And in our day, God still intervenes. I'm not saying he sends angels, he certainly can. But he still intervenes. When I mentioned the Hannah Overton case earlier today, that was a big case. And that was a case that those who followed it you saw a lot of illegal activities with the former prosecutor, the former DA Mark Sturkle. You did. It came out in certain records, and as I read the news, I could see that the local people, Sandra Watts, the few that are kind of like, maybe they run the show. Maybe they have a view in Corpus Christi of, we're doing a good job. But many of them were very aware of all the illegal activity that was taking place with the former DA, which was Sturkle. A lot of them knew it. I could tell by, and maybe some of them felt over time, we're going to try to correct things. There was a lot of wrongdoing done that has still been unaccountable for some of these other cases that I spoke about in the last couple of years. And I don't see, maybe some of those local politicos feel, well, we're embedded here. I give you the example of Judge Benyalis, who hit somebody in Corpus Christi on the highway, and he was doing 70, and the speed sign said 35. It's on one of our dangerous turns. He got away with that stuff, but he's connected. They're connected. They know each other. And I just think after a period of time, those that were getting away with things like that, God sees that. And maybe people did favors for people that they knew. But God sees that. And in the case of Herod, God saw what was going on. So everything will be put in the light. A lot of people are parking next to my roof. I think I'm going to go and buy my dinner, and I use Bill Miller's a lot, okay? So this might be the last. I still actually got some things I have to do, and but today I'll do all these rollouts at once, and tonight I'll put them up. I might do one more sometimes when I do the little walk at night. I do one more. So hope you enjoyed seeing David Martin today for a little bit. I hope any of his old friends, I try to share that post. I hope any of his old friends that get to watch that appreciate seeing their old friend. Okay, and this is from the Alamo City. Okay? David, the Bible says David dwelt in the fortress city, and he called it the city of David. And he built round about from the surrounding terraces and inland. And the Lord was with David, and the Lord prospered David for the sake of his people Israel. Okay? God bless him.